This video is based on my book, Let Go of Overthinking. Stop replaying conversations, taking things personally, and stealing your own peace. If you have ever replayed a conversation long after it ended, worried about what someone really meant, or allowed one uncomfortable moment to take over your entire day, this message is for you. Overthinking often feels like you are trying to solve something, but sometimes you are not finding an answer. You are simply returning to the beginning of the same mental loop. In this video, we are going to talk about how to recognize that loop, separate reality from assumption, and stop giving every thought the power to steal your peace. Overthinking feels useful. That is one of the reasons it is so difficult to stop. It does not usually enter your mind and announce, "I am here to make you anxious." It tells you that you are being careful, responsible, self-aware. It says that if you keep thinking, you might finally understand what happened. You might discover what someone meant. You might prevent a bad outcome. You might figure out the perfect decision. And because those reasons sound reasonable, you continue. You analyze the conversation again. You consider another possibility. You imagine one more outcome. You ask the same question in a slightly different way. But eventually, you have to ask yourself something important. Is this actually helping? Overthinking creates the feeling of control without giving you real control. Replaying a conversation does not change what was said. Worrying about the future does not control what will happen. Analyzing someone's tone does not give you access to their mind. Imagining every possible problem does not guarantee that you will avoid pain. You are mentally active, but you may not be moving anywhere. You are walking in circles, and a circle is still a circle, even when you walk it with good intentions. Thinking is useful when it leads to something: a decision, a lesson, an apology, a plan, a boundary, an action. But when the thought keeps repeating without producing anything new, it is no longer guiding you. It is draining you. This is where one simple sentence can help. This is a loop, not a solution. That sentence creates distance between you and the thought. You are no longer automatically assuming that the thought is useful simply because it feels urgent. You can pause and look at it. Is this leading somewhere? Or am I trying to think my way into certainty that does not exist? Overthinking often grows from a desire to feel safe. If I understand everything, maybe I will not be hurt. If I predict every outcome, maybe I will not be surprised. If I replay the moment enough, maybe I will find the mistake and make sure it never happens again. But complete safety is not available through thought. There will always be uncertainty. People will sometimes misunderstand you. Decisions will sometimes feel uncomfortable. You will occasionally say the wrong thing. You will not always know what someone thinks. Freedom begins when you stop demanding that your mind eliminate every uncertainty before you allow yourself to live. You can prepare reasonably. You can take useful action. Then you have to let life continue. One of the most exhausting forms of overthinking is replaying conversations. The conversation ended hours ago, maybe days ago. The other person may have moved on completely, but inside your head, the conversation is still open. You remember one sentence, one pause, one facial expression, the way they responded, the way they did not respond. Then the questions begin. Did I say too much? Did I sound foolish? Did I come across as needy? Were they offended? Do they think less of me now? Should I explain myself? Should I apologize? What did they really mean? Your mind treats the conversation like an unfinished document that can still be edited. It imagines the version where you said the perfect thing, the version where you were calmer, funnier, more confident, or less emotional. But the imaginary conversation does not replace the real one. It only gives you another reason to replay it. A lot of the time, you are not really searching for information. You are searching for a verdict. You want to know what that moment meant about you. Did they accept me? Did they reject me? Did I embarrass myself? Am I still respected? And because most conversations do not provide a clear verdict, your mind begins filling in the blank. Unfortunately, fear rarely fills in the blank kindly. A short response becomes anger. A delay becomes rejection. An awkward pause becomes judgment. A quiet mood becomes evidence that you did something wrong. But discomfort is not evidence. A feeling is not automatically a fact. Sometimes a pause was just a pause. Sometimes the person was tired. Sometimes they were distracted by something that had nothing to do with you. Sometimes they barely noticed the moment you have spent hours replaying. And even if you did say something awkward, you are still allowed to move on. One imperfect conversation does not define you. If you did something wrong, take responsibility. Apologize if an apology is needed. Clarify if clarification would genuinely help. Learn what you can do differently next time. Then let the conversation end. You do not have to keep apologizing privately after you have already taken responsibility publicly. You do not need to keep paying for the same mistake with your peace. This is where another helpful rule comes in. No new information, no new trial. If nothing new has happened, you do not need to put yourself back on trial. There is no new message, no new fact, no new action, just the same memory and the same fear. No new information, no new trial. You have already reviewed it. You have already learned what you can. You do not have to reopen the case simply because the feeling returned. The conversation is over. Let it remain over. Overthinking becomes especially painful when you start taking everything personally. Someone is quiet, and you assume they are upset with you. Someone sends a short text, and you assume you annoyed them. Someone seems distracted, and you wonder what you did wrong. Someone criticizes you, and you immediately treat their opinion as truth. This turns ordinary life into a constant emotional investigation. Every tone means something. Every silence means something. Every mood becomes your responsibility. But not everything is a message about you. People are living from the center of their own lives. They have their own worries, their own insecurities, their own exhaustion, their own problems, their own reasons for behaving the way they do. Someone may be distant because of work. They may be quiet because they are processing something private. They may be impatient because they are tired. They may be unclear because they do not communicate well. None of that automatically makes their behavior acceptable. You can still observe patterns and decide what you will tolerate. But you do not need to turn every reaction into a verdict on your worth. The mind does not like empty spaces. When you do not know why someone acted a certain way, it wants to create an explanation. And overthinking often chooses the most painful explanation available. They do not like me. I ruined something. I am being rejected. I am not important. Before you accept that story, pause and use what I call the peace reset. First say, this is a loop, not a solution. Then ask 3 questions. What do I actually know? What am I assuming? Is there an action to take, or is this something to release? What do you actually know? Maybe you know the response was shorter than usual. That is a fact, but you do not know why. They are angry with me is an assumption. Maybe they are angry. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are tired. Maybe they did not realize how their response sounded. You do not have to replace one assumption with another and pretend everything is perfect. You simply need to recognize that you do not have enough information to convict yourself. Then ask whether there is an action to take. If you need to ask a clear question, ask it. If you need to apologize, apologize. If there is a real problem, handle it. But if there is no useful action, you may need to let the uncertainty exist without turning it into a story. Other people are allowed to have moods. They are allowed to be disappointed. They are allowed to misunderstand you. You are responsible for your actions, but you are not responsible for managing every feeling in the room. You do not have to become the emotional repair crew every time someone seems uncomfortable. Care about people. Listen when there is something real to hear. Own your part when it belongs to you. But stop making yourself the main suspect in every unclear situation. The difference between reflection and rumination is direction. Reflection leads somewhere. It gives you a lesson, a decision, a boundary, or an action. Rumination goes in circles. Reflection can say, I handled that badly. I want to respond differently next time. Rumination says, I always ruin everything. Why am I like this? Reflection is honest. Rumination is hostile. Reflection examines your behavior. Rumination attacks your identity. One mistake becomes proof that you are a failure. One awkward conversation becomes proof that you are socially broken. One rejection becomes proof that no one will choose you. That is not wisdom. It is fear building a case against you. Useful thinking has an endpoint. Eventually, you reach the lesson. You make the decision. You take the action. You accept what cannot be changed. Then you stop. Rumination refuses to arrive anywhere. It always asks for one more review, one more explanation, one more imagined conversation, one more hour of your attention. At some point, you have to become willing to say, I have thought about this enough. The thought may still return, but when it returns, you do not have to treat it like a new emergency. You can recognize it. I have already been here. There is nothing new to solve. Sometimes the best response is not another thought. It is movement. Stand up. Get a drink of water. Take a walk. Clean something. Work on the task in front of you. Do one useful thing in the real world. Move first. Think less. Not because thinking is bad, because when your mind is looping, more time sitting still inside the thought may only give it more energy. Movement reminds you that life is still happening outside your head. Your life is not inside the conversation you keep replaying. It is not inside someone else's mood. It is not inside an imagined argument with a person who is not in the room. Your life is here, in the present, in what you do next. A quieter mind does not come from defeating every thought. It comes from feeding fewer of them. Every time you do not check again, replay again, assume again, or reopen the old story, the loop loses a little authority. You may still notice the thought. You may still feel discomfort, but you do not have to enter. You do not have to argue. You do not have to obey. You can let the noise pass. You can come back to what is real, the room you are in, the work in front of you, the person you are becoming. Peace does not mean your mind never becomes loud. Peace means the noise is no longer allowed to lead your life. If this message connected with you, it is based on my book, Let Go of Overthinking. Stop replaying conversations, taking things personally, and stealing your own peace. The book goes deeper into conversation replay, rumination, taking things personally, mentally arguing with people, making decisions without perfect certainty, and learning how to stop feeding the thoughts that keep stealing your peace. Let Go of Overthinking is available on Amazon. You can also find it by searching Brandon Murray Books. And the next time your mind asks you to enter the same loop again, remember, this is a loop, not a solution. No new information, no new trial. Move first. Think less. Then come back to your life.